Hey, what's up, everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so I want to make a prediction on the Knicks 76ers series. That series begins on Monday, which is tomorrow for me, and it will be starting in New York, of course, since they have home court advantage, being that they were the 4 seed or something like that. I've lost sight of that, but overall they got the home court advantage. I think they were 3 seed. Beating up on the Boston Celtics. Oh no, jeez, I'm all over the place right now. The Knicks beat up on the Hawks. Just blew them out, blew the doors off of them in Game 6, I believe that was, and really on a high right now. Despite not playing their greatest ball throughout the course of the series, they ultimately won it in 6 as I predicted. Meanwhile, the 76ers are the ones coming off the beating of the Boston Celtics yesterday in Game 7. Thriller of a basketball game. No Jason Tatum, of course, but it was still a very close game throughout, and 76ers were able to pull it out in the end and have punched their ticket to the second round against these New York Knicks. That Game 1 begins at 5 p.m. on Monday night in Madison Square. So, yeah, man, going over these teams, they split the season series with one another, having Philadelphia won the first 2 games, then New York following that with the second 2. The first game was on 12-19, 116-107. Philadelphia got the victory in New York, and then the second game was also in New York, 130-119 on January 3rd. The 76ers won that one, and then the third game was 124 several weeks later, where the Knicks got the victory in Philadelphia, 112-109. And the fourth game was on February 11th in Philadelphia, where the Knicks got a win, 138-89. Now, the fourth game, you got to put an asterisk on it because it was no Paul George, no Joel Embiid. I think Maxey was probably coming back from injury or something like that. So that big blowout did not give them a full taste of what they would expect. But it's rather interesting to me that the road team won all the games in that regular season series, especially given the history between these two cities, New York and Philadelphia. So this is going to be a spirited series. I think what I'm most curious about is the health of the 76ers. Joel Embiid might have been Maxey who accidentally fell into his leg in Game 7. He played through it, but he was rather hobbled. Obviously, the 76er team is a team that, if healthy, can win the East. I mean, I think that is what we can say outright, given what we've seen them do already, healthy. I didn't have them winning a single game against the Celtics. I didn't expect the Celtics to play as poorly as they did, and I definitely didn't expect Philadelphia to be as healthy as they were. But just the same, my prediction was super off. And Philadelphia not only won a game, but they won all 4 games, which won them this series. And now they move on, play the Knicks. I think the thing about the 76ers that must be respected is that backcourt. Obviously, Joel Embiid is if healthy, he's balling, they can win. But I think what makes them really different and what makes this team probably one of the best teams he's ever played on is VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey. Just simply being too athletic, too fast, and too deadly to keep up with for any single backcourt probably in existence right now. And that, I think, is going to be a determining factor in this series as well. When I think about the New York Knicks, for all the energy that they exert, for all the different factors that they have with shooters and stars and defenders that can help you on both sides and stuff like that. The one thing that I'm concerned about is they really do have a lack of athleticism. It's not that they are so deficient athletically that they can't compete, but they really don't have that as a strength. They don't have a whole lot of leapers. They don't have a whole lot of, guys that are moving back and forth at superhuman, rates. They have guys that are low to the ground. As I look at their roster, I think the most athletic player I probably see here, none of these people are athletic. None of them. Maybe Mikal Bridges. That might be the most athletic player they got. And so it's going to be incumbent upon them to play a straight floor game and try to muck it up and make it nasty against the Philadelphia 76er team that's kind of lacking in depth. But I think what concerns me is, in my mind's eye, I don't know how they're going to slow down Maxey and Edgecombe. I don't have any idea. When you look at Jose Alvarado, he's a fantastic defensive player. In the fourth game against the Philadelphia 76ers, when they won by 1 million, he had like 8 or 12 from behind the arc. So we know what he can do, especially when he gets the 3-ball going. And also, he's known for stealing inbounds and stuff like that. He's a fairly good defender, even though he's only 6 feet. I don't doubt that he can create some problems. But if the shot isn't overly falling, he's just a guy out there, probably somebody who can be exploited, to be honest with you, on the defensive end, despite his defensive abilities and heart on that side. OG Anunoby is probably the player that I think is most important in this series, only because he can provide so much on both sides of the floor. He's one of the best two-way players in basketball today, in my opinion. When you talk about guys at the wing, it's 28 years old, 6'7", 240 pounds. He's just your quintessential helpful piece who has a balance about himself to where he's just as good on both sides. Shoots the ball very well. He's turned himself into a really good shooter. Not overly athletic himself, but he would be my best bet to try to contain one of those two people. He's big enough and strong enough and fast enough to create a lot of problems for a lot of different positions. Switchability is a factor for him that's never going to be an issue. And I think he will be responsible for trying to guard one of those guys. The problem is, as talented as he is, I don't know that he has the foot speed to keep up with either one of those two gentlemen. And he might be a little too big to do it. You may need him in other areas. I look at Mikal Bridges. Obviously, he's an Iron Man in this league. His offense has been this has been a very down year for him. I haven't forgotten what he did in Brooklyn when he was going for 40 and stuff like that as the main scorer on that Brooklyn squad. But his offense is falling completely off of a cliff with the New York Knicks, especially this season, where it's been significantly less than what you would expect from him. Defensively, maybe he can be somebody that you put on one of those two guys and try to get something out of him. He's wiry enough and long enough to create problems at 6'6", 209. But, again, it becomes a situation where it's like, those are wing defenders. These are guards. These are little guards. And not too little, because VJ is not a little person. But, you're talking about blurs, athletes, in different ways. Maxey's not getting off the ground like an explosive athlete, but he is one of the quickest people in the league, one of the fastest people in the basketball, and one of the more lethal scorers at this point. He's turned himself into basically a superstar. Now you give him a backcourt mate in VJ Edgecombe that's basically like that. He flies all over the place, one of the most impressive leapers at the 2-yard position we have in the league today. And he hits big shots. He plays hard on both sides of the floor, and he's just exceeded all expectations for what you would expect out of a rookie. He doesn't even play like a rookie at this point. He's a main piece to a playoff team at this point, and I just think that right now, when I think about who are the best backcourts in the NBA, you don't have to look too far than Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe, because as they continue to grow synergy with one another, what you're finding out is this is a dynamic that no team really has an answer for in this league right now. With just the hyper athleticism of both of those players and the hyper energy and the lethal scoring ability that both of these guys bring to the table, I would not be surprised to see them make it to the finals at this point. If they can keep the rest of the stuff around them healthy, there's no answer for that. No one has any answer for that. Maybe OKC. They have so many defenders, but I think those guys are going to find out that the athleticism of these two are going to create problems for them too, in ways that no other team is going to create. I just think that Philadelphia has stumbled into something that I think the NBA is going to have to react to. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't know that the New York Knicks have enough to keep those guys at bay at all. They do have guys like Miles McBride, fantastic defender. Josh Hart is somebody you would hope to be able to do that. Clearly, Josh Hart he's plays like a power forward, even though he's 6'5", 215. He rebounds with the best of them. So it's not like the Knicks don't create a lot of problems. And most would consider the Knicks a better team than the Philadelphia 76ers. But I just think that, the first thing that comes to mind when I look at this series is not anything other than how in the hell do the Knicks, with their personnel, slow down that backcourt? How do they keep those guys from going for 25 a night, 30 a night? I don't know that they can. Even with the perimeter defenders that they have, it's too much explosiveness, it's too much speed. And so that's what comes to mind. The Knicks are known for being an energetic team, though, and they do have a lot of perimeter defenders. That is not a weakness for their team at all. So I want to make that very clear. Obviously, Jalen Brunson needs to be considered. He didn't have the greatest series from what I understand. I didn't watch a whole lot of that series that he had between them and the Atlanta Hawks. But from what I understand, he struggled a bit. 29 years old, of course, 6'2", 190. He's a capable defender. I guess you would say he's not what you would consider a good defender at all, but he doesn't allow himself to be a liability. He can be targeted, and I'd expect he will be in this series. And so it's going to be incumbent upon him to do all the things that he does to provide a great deal of scoring to offset what's going to be coming at him, especially if Joel is healthy. He's going to have to be going for 30 a night, in my opinion, especially if Mikal is going to continue to struggle offensively. It's going to be incumbent upon OG, Jalen, and, of course, Cat to score a lot of points. And I think it's going to require them to score a lot of points to win this series. It would be helpful if Mikal could get back in his scoring bag, at least score 15, 20 points a night, but I just don't think that that's something you can count on him for right now for whatever reason. So Jalen Brunson is the head of the snake for the New York Knicks, in my opinion. And, I know he's an impossible player to guard because of his ability to attack from just strange parts of the floor, like 7 feet away. He's just a master at finding ways to score the ball inside, and teardrops and stuff like that, getting to the line. Of course, the flops are going to be a real thing in this series. But when his three balls fall, he's pretty much impossible to stop. He's a fantastic playmaker as well, so he gets others involved when the defense collapses on him. So he's damn near impossible to guard. And I don't doubt that he's going to need to be special in this series, because you would expect that Maxey is definitely going to be to offset him. So, it's going to be a battle between him and Maxey, and I think if I'm putting my money on anybody, it's going to be on Maxey, unfortunately, for Brunson. But that doesn't mean that Brunson hasn't proven himself time and time again to be an excellent playoff performer and an overall superstar at this point. But I just think that the athleticism of the backcourt over in Philadelphia makes this an interesting series for Brunson to be targeted defensively and to just have everything that he does basically be matched by the other guys. So that's a thing for me. Karl Anthony Towns, obviously fantastic three-point shooter, fantastic overall center, finds a way to drive at the rim. He doesn't look like he should be able to get as much rim pressure as he does off the bounce, but he does. He tends to find his way in, makes layups and stuff like that. Fantastic shooter from all three levels. Can be a nice rebounder and shot blocker. But he's going up against Joel. And the thing about Joel is, again, health. But if I have to choose between both of them when they're healthy, I think Joel gets the slight edge, although I have a lot of respect for Karl's talent. And I think talent is something that you're going to find plentiful in this series at the big man position between those two. But I just think Joel's a little greater than him. And I think it's going to show in this series if Joel is healthy enough to play every night. But if he's not, then I expect Cat to win that matchup and just be more available to his basketball club. That could be a difference as well, especially if Cat's hitting all his shots from behind the arc as usual. Their very best three-point shooting center in the history of the sport. The numbers back that up. And I offer that every time I talk about Big Cat. We don't want nobody to forget that. You can't leave him back there at all. You just can't. And so I expect for him to have a huge series. He's going to need to. He and Joel have some history. They've gotten into it on Twitter. They've gotten into it in physical matchups as well. The legend continues between those two. That's a real rivalry. And I expect for it to be a lot of chirping. I expect for this to be some scuffles. I expect for this to be a very chippy matchup between these two teams. It's going to get ugly. And it's going to be very entertaining in my opinion. Keep an eye open for Big Cat and JoJo because they have their history. The edge for me goes to New York in terms of depth. I don't think that's really too concerning as far as them having issues in that regard. I expect that the Knicks have a better bench. They will utilize their bench. Guys like Jordan Clarkson, you will see Miles McBride, Mitchell Robinson. Obviously, he's a big-time player in this series. Landry Shamit's been a real good shooter. So, I expect to see a lot of them. Jose Alvarado, they have a very good bench right now. They've done some good things to make their bench better. And with Mitchell Robinson healthy, that's going to be something that really gives the Knicks the edge, because when you look at the Philadelphia center position, they're a bit undersized, in my opinion. Now, obviously, you're talking about Andre Drummond versus Mitchell Robinson. I give the edge to Mitchell Robinson, even though Drummond has some very strong rebounding prowess. He's turned himself into somebody who you can respect from behind the arc somehow. But when it comes to Mitchell Robinson, this is one of the best offensive rebounders in the game and one of the best shot blockers in the game. And when you're dealing with him, you need length and height. You need to be able to get off the ground. And that's going to be a very difficult task for Drummond and Bona to offset what Mitchell Robinson does out there on their end. It's just I think Mitchell probably gets the edge there. Miles McBride, the perimeter defender, he's going to be guarding some people off of that bench, probably going to be guarding some people as well. They might try to throw him at VJ or Maxey at times. Of course, I expect VJ and Maxey to get the best of him, but he's going to have his moments when the starters sit down. So, yeah, man, I'm looking at this Knicks lineup. I like it. The depth is there, man. Landry Shamit's going to have some big shots in this series for certain. I don't know if they're going to play Tyler Kolek, but I really like him just as a point guard out there. I don't really know what his role is, but Jose Alvarado, like I said, if he's shooting well, he can really contribute to scoring. He's obviously going to be a tyrant out there and a culture connector for the New York Knicks against this storied franchise, somebody who has New York in his blood as a New Yorker. So I expect for Jose Alvarado to have a very loud series. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets into a scuffle with somebody. It's just something to expect. I'd like to take a look at this Philadelphia roster since I've been paying attention so much to this Knicks roster. As I said in the last series with the Philadelphia 76ers, I think they have, at this point, overachieved with this roster. I don't think it's the greatest roster in the world. Honestly, I don't. But when you have healthy stars, you don't really need others to really do as much. And I think that what you're usually counting on when assessing the Sixers team is that the stars won't be out there. They're out there right now. But, getting something from a guy like Dominic Barlow with his length at 22 years of age, 6'9", 215, I think he's an extremely important role player in this series just because of what his length provides. Trying to guard a guy like OG Anunoby, for example, or trying to continue to offset what, some of those bench defenders do. It's going to be important for him to win his matchup when called upon. Andre Drummond already been mentioned. VJ, of course. Justin Edwards got some minutes in that Game 7. I thought that was pretty interesting. If they could get him confident, he could help them in garbage time, I'd imagine, keep leads and stuff like that. Paul George, at 36 years of age, he has really rekindled his career in Philadelphia after starting off bad with the, podcast piece stuff, not looking like he was really serious. I think having that suspension pull him away from his team for 20 games or whatever it was kind of lit a fire under him, kind of, refocused him, helped him understand, what he can do to help his team, help him, kind of get back into the love of the game, having it taken away from him forcefully. I think it's a combination of that and him just getting in better shape, being healthy for an extended period of time, not having any pressure on him to carry the load like he's had in every situation he's been in this situation. And then you look up and you realize they drafted VJ Edgecombe, they're slapping him next to Tyrese Maxey. This might be the best opportunity for you to win. So you get a love for the game that comes back to you that maybe wasn't there when you first got to Philly and Joel was always hurt and you didn't really have VJ and it was just a lot going on that didn't look very inspiring. I think this situation has flipped on its axis with the insertion of VJ, and suddenly a guy like Paul George is loving basketball again. I think that's what we're seeing, and he's healthy. So he's been contributing in ways that we haven't seen in 4 or 5 years, in my opinion. And with him being 100% healthy, it becomes a real problem for the New York Knicks, because not only do you have to deal with that backcourt, but now you got to deal with the overall perimeter play of Paul George and his big shot ability and his defensive ability, which is really rekindled on this team. When you consider Paul George and Kelly Oubre, they were monsters against the Boston Celtics and really did a lot to create problems defensively as a tandem. And so you couple that with the length of a Joel Embiid when he's out there, and suddenly this team has the ability to play a really strong brand of defense. You know, the speed of guys like, the two that I mentioned there, and then you talk about a guy like Tyrese Maxey, Quentin Grimes. These guys have the ability to be a part of a good defensive situation. VJ Edgecombe and his length, his effort on the defensive end, it creates problems. So, like I said, the Philadelphia 76ers don't have the greatest roster in the world, but when everybody's slotted in their proper position, suddenly the depth is a bit more plentiful than maybe you would assess most times. They're just healthy. This is what the team would be when they're healthy. We don't expect that the Philadelphia 76ers would be the 7th seed if they were healthy all season. In fact, they'd probably be the 1-2 seed, to be honest with you. And so this is a situation where that's the version of the Knicks, the version of the Sixers that the Knicks are running into right now. And I would be a little concerned. Quentin Grimes was very aggressive in Game 7, even though he didn't make either one of those dunks. He got to the line trying to dunk on people's head. I think that's a strong way for him to help his team, continuing to put pressure on the rim and force the whistle in his favor. Kelly Oubre, same thing. Those guys being aggressive is so important with the talent of OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart. It's incumbent upon George and Barlow, Quentin Grimes. If Trendon Watford gets cemented as Kelly Oubre, those people are extremely important. Justin Edwards, if they, are called upon, they have to really show up in an energetic way every single night for 48 minutes. And if they give that energy, they can match some of the depth of the New York Knicks and ultimately create problems for the New York Knicks. But yeah, man, this is all about the top heaviness of the Philadelphia 76ers, really. VJ, Paul George, Maxey, JoJo, and whoever that fourth guy would be. Probably Kelly Oubre in a lot of cases. Maybe they call on Dominique in a lot of cases as well. Quentin Grimes will be called upon in those situations. They have to play closer to their ceiling than to their floor going up against this Knicks team that has so many different weapons to throw at you. So many different weapons. It's more centered to where you're counting on more of the stars on the Sixers than what the New York Knicks will be forced to call upon, in my opinion. The inconsistency of the Philadelphia 76ers, others, is what gives me cause for pause. Kelly is going to play great all night, every night. Tyrese Maxey, Martin, if called upon, is he going to play very well? I have questions about those guys that I don't have about the New York Knicks. Drummond, is he going to have a good series? Bona, if he is called upon, can he help the team? Barlow, what am I getting from him? These guys have an opportunity to create some certainty in that regard by showing up big in this series. And that's really what I would call upon them to do. That's what I would be telling them as my coach, if I were the coach of this team, is people do have questions about you guys showing up. People do have questions about our depth. People do have questions about some of you guys individually as well as collectively for this unit. This is an opportunity for you to shut the names who have those questions up. And so that's what I would tell them. Oubre, so important. Barlow, Bona, Drummond, Edwards, Grimes. Y'all got to win your matchups. Because we don't have as many questions about the guys on the other side. And if anybody's going to expect the Knicks to win that series, it's going to be because we don't expect you guys to show up consistently well enough. So that's really what it is. It's the Oubres and the Grimes, the Drummonds and the Bonas and the Barlows. They got to ball out, because I know what I'm going to get from JoJo when he's healthy. I know what I'm getting from Paul George. I don't have any questions about Maxey. I don't have any questions about VJ. But it's them other dudes that I'm like, all right, if the Knicks going to win this series, it's going to be because of people they didn't have it. They weren't able to show up for the moment And as I said, the New York Knicks, I just don't have as many questions. Jose, I know he's going to show up. OG for sure. Mikal, definitely. JB, obviously. JC's been around for so long. Jordan Clarkson, I know what to expect from him. He's a little older now, but, weight room is going to be weight room. I've been calling him that since he was a rookie. He's going to finish through contact. He's going to get to the line. He's going to hit a couple threes. He's going to sit down mostly in this series, but I know what he's going to do. Josh Hart, man, same thing. I know Josh Hart. As a Laker fan, grew up in our system. We know exactly what he can do. Rebound the ball. When you give him the ball, he can drive at the rim. He's turned himself into a respectful three-point shooter. Not a great one, but solid enough to hit shots when you need him to. Play with energy, heart at all times. He's going to live up to his last name every time. No questions about him. Miles McBride turned himself into a fantastic point of attack defender. I have some questions, but not as many as I do about some of those other guys. Mitchell Robinson, I know exactly what I'm getting from him. Landry Shamet, at this point, I know exactly what I'm getting from him. So it's like I just don't have as many questions about the Knicks, and that's something that really needs to be taken into account with this series. Role players, just more reliable ones in New York. This is what it is. So, I think this series has the ability to go 6 or 7 either way. And counting on the Philadelphia health or doubting the Philadelphia health just the same has not boded well for me. I don't know what to expect from JoJo. Is he going to be healthy enough? Is he going to be on the floor long enough? I always worry about that when considering the Philadelphia 76ers. If they're healthy and everybody's in shape, all clicking, this is definitely a series I think Philly can win. But with those questions being in place, with JoJo now having a new knee injury that he has to overcome, on top of the fact that he just had surgery on his appendix just 2-3 weeks ago, I'm just inclined to think that at some point he's going to have to take a game off or sit down or not play 48 minutes. He's always laboring, and this series is no exception. And I just don't think Philadelphia can win this series without 100% from JoJo. So my prediction is contingent on whether or not Joel can be upright, healthy, and hitting shots like he's capable of doing. Because I know right now Carl's healthy, Josh is healthy, Brunson's healthy, Bridges healthy, OG healthy, Jose healthy. You see what I'm saying? Robinson for a change, very healthy right now. Hopefully it stays that way. Like, I don't have as many questions about the Knicks. At the end of the day, I don't have as many questions. But there is a big question that the Knicks are going to have to answer, and that is, can you stay in front of Maxey and VJ? Can you stay in front of these people? I count on OG and Anunoby to be able to, I want to say this with a lot of respect, but do some good things against Paul George, okay? Between Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, George should have a tough time out there. He should. It should be a tough series for him to do what he did against the Boston Celtics. More trustworthy, seasoned, higher-level perimeter defenders on this team than what the Boston Celtics were able to display. Boston's now, at this point, relying on some people that are just getting started, and that don't bode well when you're trying to go up against Paul George. When you're talking about Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, yeah, they should be able to create a lot of problems. Miles McBride, they should be able to create a lot of problems for Paul George. Karl Townsend and Joel Embiid are going to cancel each other out, or if Joel ain't healthy, Karl is going to overcome it. Karl should definitely win that matchup in this series, being the healthier player. But the Brunson-Maxey matchup, I guess I'll just say Josh Hart for the sake of it, VJ Edgecombe matchup. That's where it really becomes a situation where it's like, okay, the way JB's been playing versus the way Maxey's been playing, I just have to say Maxey's the better player right now. I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago. I don't even know if I would have said that last year. But right now, Maxey has surpassed Jalen Brunson in my humble opinion. Doesn't mean they both can't go for 50 or whatever it is, but I just expect that Maxey's a more capable and a more refined basketball player today. And so then I look at VJ and I say, man, ain't nobody stopping VJ. If VJ gets in his bag, there's no one stopping him on this team. They're going to throw a lot of stuff at him and none of it going to work. Because you have to deal with both of them at the same time, and it's just too much. But the question I have about the young fella VJ is, can you be efficient enough? Are you going to be able to give them the big night? Or are you going to have some games in the series where those guys are going to get to you and make it so that you're inefficient and ultimately under scoring? Because if you're not scoring the ball, that's a lot of pressure on Paul George and Joel to help Maxey with that. Because I don't trust the rest of them dudes to really contribute to the scoring at all. So VJ has to be the 30-point VJ, big shot hitting VJ. The stuff that we've seen him do this season, though, just exceeds what you would expect from a rookie in most situations. He's a very, very old soul as it pertains to this basketball floor. He hits big shots. And with his athleticism, he's doing stuff that you don't see. Quick twitch muscles and stuff like that. He is something special. The VJ Edgecombe, man. Very, very special. And you're slapping him next to somebody who's very, very special in Tyrese Maxey. I just think that they've already proven they can overcome great things. And I wouldn't be surprised if they overcome the Knicks. Because that's possible here. So that's really what it comes down to. I think this series goes 7, man. I think my prediction is telling me just see it go in the distance. Smart money says see it go in the distance. Now, if JoJo's not healthy and those role players from the Sixers aren't showing up and the Knicks are clicking like they're supposed to, this thing ends in 5. A lot is riding on those inconsistent Sixer role players to play very well and for everybody to stay healthy. And that's why I think I'm just going to pick the Knicks off the strength of them just being a better bet to be their best selves in the series. Based on all the different things that have to go right for the Sixers, I don't think as many things have to go right for the Knicks in order for them to see themselves winners in this series. I don't think so. But I'm telling you this. I have every reason to believe that the New York Knicks have absolutely no answer for Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. They have zero answer for that on the basketball floor. They are not quick enough. They're not athletic enough. Those guys should be able to have their way with this series all series long. OG, McHale, and McBride are going to have something to say about that. Josh Hart, they're going to have something to say about that. Those 4 players going to have to do the job. And they're going to, OG and McHale going to have their hands full with whatever their matchup is going to be. Somebody is going to have an easy matchup. And if that person attacks that matchup properly, it's a bad night. So, I'm looking at, again, the role players of the Philadelphia 76ers. They're the determining factor for me. Everything else could cancel itself out. But can they be big enough on the nights where Joel is not out there? That's the question. Assuming Joel misses any games, which I think he may have to, just off the strength of being Joel Embiid. If I'm assuming he misses a game 5 or something like that, can you get enough out of Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, Edwards? I think it really comes out Barlow. Can they do enough in the scoring column and defensively when they can't get consistent scoring out of the big guys? And I don't think the answer is yes. But that does not mean that on that night, Maxey don't go for 40 and VJ don't go for 35. Like, it's totally possible, especially with the type of defensive matchups that could potentially be on them that they should be able to take advantage of. And that they're athletic, young enough, fast enough to take advantage of. So, I don't know. I legitimately think this thing goes 7. I'm going to say Knicks in 7 with not a whole lot of confidence. Because I think the Knicks are in a vulnerable position dealing with those 2 speed demons in that backcourt, man. I just don't think they have any answer for that. And from game to game to game, if Philadelphia creates enough opportunities for themselves, if JoJo plays enough of these games, I can totally see a situation where some of them games are close, and it's going to be about whether or not JB can close the game out or whether or not Maxey closes the game out. And as I said, right now, if I'm putting my money on one of the 2, if it comes down to that, right now I'm putting my money on Maxey, bro. I just am. I'm putting my money on Maxey. And so that's a real thing, but at the end of the day, I just trust that Cat's going to be on the floor more than Joel. And because of that potential being the case, I just think that it's going to be difficult for the Philadelphia 76ers to keep up with the Knicks scoring the ball, especially if they're going to continue to get huge games out of OG Anunoby. If he's going to continue to score 28 and 30 points every night, JB goes for 25, 26 points, and then Cat goes for his 30, whatever it's going to be. That's like 90 points between 3 players. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get that if Joel ain't on the floor. With Paul George having such phenomenal defenders on him, it's going to be incumbent upon VJ and Maxey to be absolute monsters, and for guys like Kelly Oubre to contribute to the scoring column. If I'm a Philadelphia fan, I need roughly 15 to 18 points from Kelly Oubre every night. I can't trust him to do that. Can I honestly count on him to do that every night? No. And so that's where it becomes a problem. Philadelphia needs one more person. Maybe that's Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes is so highly inconsistent, though. You might have a night where he goes for 35, and the next night he goes for 6 points. That player, that particular piece needs to be a more consistent scorer in this rotation for me to feel confident they're going to beat these Knicks. That's what it really comes down to. If they can get Grimes and Oubre to score closer to their ceiling every night, Philly will win this series. If those guys aren't scoring enough, it's incumbent upon the stars to be superhuman every night. They can do it, but I'm not betting on it against what the Knicks are also capable of doing to help themselves. So that's really what I'm going to say. The Knicks in 7, man, I'm not overly confident because I think that the Philadelphia 76ers have a trump card in this series between that backcourt being too fast for anybody on that Knicks team. But the overall Knicks fight and solution should be more likely to be found in this series than I'm expecting what is needed for the Sixers to be available to me every single night. BDO 44, I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.